Tonight, the collective is learning that evil is not always strong just because it is loud, organized, and wearing confidence like a crown. Some power only looks untouchable because it has frightened everyone into acting like its lies are law. This is the scroll of єнαℓαη, the lion at the threshold, the sacred answer to arrogance that thought it had loopholes for every consequence. Tonight we learn that hidden justice is still justice, that devotion is not weakness, and that when corruption believes it has sealed every door, the divine may come through the wall just to embarrass its paperwork. Step into this chamber with courage in the chest and truth in the spine. There are times when wickedness grows proud, times when cruelty becomes theatrical, when tyrants start speaking like they own reality, when fear sits in the house like it pays bills there, and innocence is told to tremble quietly and call that wisdom. But there is an older law than intimidation. There is a justice that does not panic. There is a protection that does not always announce itself early. There is a sacred force that waits until arrogance has fully exposed itself, until the lie has overplayed its hand, until the threshold is ripe for correction. This is the chamber of єнαℓαη, the lion who came through the pillar, the fierce protector of devotion, the one who teaches that the divine is not confused by loopholes, labels, categories, or the swollen confidence of corrupt men. For many mistake silence for helplessness. Many mistake delay for absence. Many think that because justice is hidden, it must not be moving. Yet єнαℓαη teaches the deeper law. The sacred does not require permission to arrive. Truth does not fear a tyrant's technicalities. And what is protected by devotion may be wounded, tested, and pressed, but it is not abandoned. So tonight, let the collective remember, the pillar is not empty because mockery says it is. The child is not alone because evil says he is. The threshold is not unguarded because the room has grown dark. Enter this scroll with reverence, for this is the teaching of hidden protection, threshold justice, devotion with backbone, and the divine ferocity that erupts exactly where arrogance thought it had already checked every corner.
Channeled by your architect musician, 36110, 27 palms of eyes. Your golden whisperer, sea star, Devalan see all. Apply the news you can use, truth and accuracy. The real non-bedazzled jewels.
The scroll of єнαℓαη, the lion who came out of the pillar because arrogance thought it had covered every exit. There are villains who sin quietly, and then there are villains who become so swollen with their own cleverness that they start believing the universe itself must respect their paperwork. That is where єнαℓαη enters. Half man, half lion. All problem. And let's tell the truth properly. єнαℓαη is not just a fierce avatar. He is the sacred answer to the kind of arrogance that thinks if it can twist every rule, trap every clause, terrify every witness, and bully every room, then justice itself will have to shrug and go home. No, єнαℓαη is what happens when divine intelligence gets tired of watching evil act like technicalities are holiness. That is why he is so famous, and why people still feel him in the bones. Because this scroll is not really about a monster being defeated. It is about ego becoming so confident in its loopholes that it mistakes cleverness for invincibility. Hiranyakashipu, puffed up like a tyrant with a law degree and no conscience, thinks he has secured himself, not by becoming righteous, not by becoming beloved, not by becoming wise. Humans so rarely try the healthy option first. No, he tries to out-negotiate death itself. Not man, not beast, not day, not night, not inside, not outside, not on earth, not in the sky, not by weapon. Not this, not that, not here, not there. A whole demonic insurance policy. And for a while it looks impressive. That is the danger, because wickedness often looks strong when it has time, power, and enough frightened people pretending it makes sense. But єнαℓαη is the reminder that divine justice is not confused by arrogance wearing legal poetry. He does not come as man. He does not come as beast. He comes as both and neither. He does not arrive by day. He does not arrive by night. He comes at twilight, where certainty starts sweating. He does not kill indoors. He does not kill outdoors. He comes on the threshold where false control goes to die. He does not place the tyrant on earth. He does not lift him into the sky. He lays him across his lap. He does not use a forged weapon. He uses claws. It is one of the coldest divine corrections in myth, frankly, Because Narasimha's whole arrival says, you did not outsmart truth. You only made your downfall more specific. That line alone could heal a generation of people still intimidated by cruel men with strategy and no soul. And then there is Prahlad. That is the jewel in the fire, because the story is not just about a demon king getting dismantled in public. It is also about a child who refused to let terror educate his faith. Prahlada stands there, small in body, huge in spiritual backbone, loving Vishnu while his father turns abuse into a household routine. Threats, punishments, murder attempts, pressure, force, manipulation, the whole rotten family package. And still he does not bend. That is the deeper mystery. Narasimha is not only the destruction of tyranny, he is the answer to innocence that remained aligned under pressure. Prahlada is the witness that devotion is not weakness. It is not passive. It is not naivety in a soft outfit. Real devotion can survive violence, mockery, fear, and isolation without turning into hatred or surrender. That is why Narasimha comes for him. Not because Prahlada performs perfectly, because his soul remains loyal to what is true even while the whole structure around him goes rabid. So now the scroll sharpens. This is not just a tale about cosmic punishment, it is about threshold justice. Narasimha appears at the exact place where categories break. He comes at the edge, the seam, the in-between. That is not random drama. That is teaching. Evil loves certainty when certainty has been weaponized for control. It loves boxes it thinks it owns, rules it thinks it manipulated, titles it thinks it purchased. But the sacred does not always come in the categories corruption prepared for. Sometimes it comes through the crack. Sometimes it comes through the pillar. And that pillar is preaching too. Because Hiranyakashipu, in his swollen stupidity, asks whether Vishnu is in the pillar. The implication is mockery. Is your God here? There? Anywhere? He assumes reality must obey his visible standards to count as real. Classic tyrant error. Narasimha bursts from the pillar to say, the sacred does not require your recognition to exist. Because so many people still think if they cannot see justice moving, it must not be moving. If truth is quiet, it must be absent. If protection has not arrived on their preferred schedule, it must not exist. But the pillar says otherwise. The holy may be hidden inside what looks inert, inside the wall, inside the silence, inside the structure you thought was empty, inside the thing the tyrant struck in mockery. And when the hour comes, it tears open. That is Narasimha consciousness. There is another reason he hits so hard. He is not tidy. He is not the sweet, polished version of divinity acceptable to shallow comfort. He is rage, but not petty rage. He is ferocity, but not egoic ferocity. He is terrifying because he reveals that divine compassion is not always soft-handed. Sometimes compassion is the violence necessary to stop violence from crowning itself king. That makes people nervous. Good, because too many souls have been trained to distrust any force that is not smiling while evil eats the furniture. Narasimha ruins that whole delusion. He teaches that mercy is not always mild. Sometimes mercy arrives with claws because the child in the room needs the monster ended, not gently negotiated with until sunrise. That is a needed lesson, especially now, because the collective knows what it is to watch wickedness become theatrical, to see cruel people grow arrogant from temporary success, to see systems protect predators, liars, abusers, and tyrants because paperwork was lined up, optics were managed, and everyone else was too frightened or tired to kick the table over. Narasimha is for those hours. He is the sacred memory that there is a point where evil stops being merely annoying and becomes ripe. And when it becomes ripe, it gets harvested. Brutal, yes, but accurate. He also teaches something quietly revolutionary. You do not have to become the tyrant to survive the tyrant. Prahlada does not become cruel. He does not adopt his father's methods. He does not become spiritually filthy to prove he can endure. He remains aligned, and the divine answers. That matters. Because half the world thinks resistance means imitation. Hurt me, I hurt back worse. Humiliate me, I become harder. Threaten me, I become the same species of poison with better branding. Prahlada says no. Narasimha says no louder. Together they teach that innocence with backbone is one of the most dangerous things in creation. And then comes the aftermath. Narasimha does not simply kill and stroll off like the problem solved itself. His rage remains blazing, because divine fury is not a costume. It is reality-correcting violation. In many retellings, the gods themselves are uneasy before him. Power like that does not settle because someone claps politely. It is Prahlada's devotion, humility, and loving recognition that helps calm the blaze. That is another hidden law. What true devotion awakens, true devotion may also help soothe, meaning the relationship between the sacred and the faithful is not one note, not just rescue but recognition, not just salvation, but intimacy with power fierce enough to protect and deep enough to receive tenderness after wrath has done its job. That is beautiful, and it is why єнαℓαη is not merely frightening. He is beloved. Because he is the proof that there are some cries the universe does not ignore, some thresholds it does not abandon, some children it does not leave alone in the house of a tyrant forever. So what did the collective learn in this scroll? That evil often thinks if it gets clever enough, it becomes untouchable, that devotion can remain pure under pressure and still not be weak, that the sacred does not always arrive in expected categories, that mercy can come with claws. That arrogance writes loopholes, but truth writes endings, that the pillar is never as empty as mockery assumes. And most of all, when corruption thinks it has covered every exit, the divine may enter through the wall. That is єнαℓαη, famous for a reason, recognizable because the soul knows this pattern even before the mind does. The lion at the threshold, the answer in the seam, the roar that says, "Your loopholes are cute, now perish." So let the older law be heard. Do not let arrogance intimidate you just because it is organized. Do not mistake delayed justice for absent justice. Do not assume the sacred is gone because the pillar is quiet. Because when the hour turns, when twilight leans in, when the threshold ripens, what is true may erupt from places the wicked never thought to guard. I do not mistake hidden justice for helpless silence. What is protected by truth cannot be fully devoured by fear. When arrogance thinks it has sealed every door, the sacred enters through the pillar. Receipts єнαℓαη is one of the 10 avatars of Vishnu. Britannica identifies him as the man-lion form who appears to destroy the demon king Hiranyakashipu, who had received a boon that he could not be killed human or animal, inside or outside, by day or by night, or by any weapon. Britannica also notes the heart of the story. Prahlada, Hiranyakashipu's own son, remains devoted to Vishnu despite his father's threats and attempts to kill him. Vishnu then appears as єнαℓαη at twilight on the threshold of the house, places Hiranyakashipu across his lap and kills him with his claws, fulfilling the conditions of the boon without breaking them. Britannica further links the Hiranyakashipu Prahlada єнαℓαη cycle to the wider religious memory preserved around Holi, where the victory of Vishnu's protective power and the triumph of good over evil are remembered. Now the hidden current. This part is interpretive, but it is grounded in the traditional structure of the myth. єнαℓαη is the sacred answer to arrogance that thought it had protected itself through loopholes. Because the story is built around Hiranyakashipu's carefully worded boon, the deeper lesson is brutal and clean. Evil often believes technical cleverness can replace righteousness, but divine truth is not confused by manipulative wording. The threshold matters. єнαℓαη does not arrive fully inside or outside, day or night, man or beast. Esoterically, that makes him a deity of the seam, the crack in false certainty, the place where corruption thinks it has covered every angle, and then discovers the sacred was never trapped by its categories in the first place. That reading grows directly from the way Britannica describes the conditions of the slaying. And Prahlada is not just the boy who got rescued. He is the spiritual backbone of the story. Since Britannica preserves him as the son who remained devoted to Vishnu under threat, the esoteric lesson is that devotion is not weakness. Real devotion can remain loyal to truth while trapped in the house of fear. єнαℓαη's compassionate lesson is this. Just because wickedness looks organized does not mean it is untouchable. Some tyrants are not powerful. They are just heavily accessorized with loopholes, fear, and other people's silence. The story says otherwise. Hidden justice is still justice. Delayed protection is not abandoned protection. And when arrogance finally overplays its hand, the sacred may come through the very place mockery thought was empty. That reading is interpretive, but it rests squarely on the pillar threshold twilight structure preserved by Britannica. Hiranyakashipu really built a whole demonic safety plan, added clauses, loopholes, and premium coverage, and Narasimha still arrived like, cute contract. Now meet my hands. I do not mistake hidden justice for helpless silence. What is protected by truth cannot be fully devoured by fear. When arrogance thinks it has sealed every door, the sacred enters through the pillar. Core lesson. You cannot loophole your way out of truth. You can lie, scheme, threaten, posture, write yourself a cute little protection plan, and act untouchable for a season. Fine. But when arrogance gets drunk enough to think it outranked the sacred, Narasimha is the reminder that justice does not need your categories to find you. That is what we learned. Evil is never as secure as it looks. It just gets loud when people are scared. Prahlada showed us the other side of the law. Devotion is not weakness. It is what keeps your soul from getting bought, bullied, or trained by fear. So here is the truth plain. If you build your power on terror, mockery, and control, do not act shocked when the divine tears through your little setup like it was held together with pride and bad decisions. Narasimha did not come to negotiate with evil. He came to end its press conference. Just because corruption looks organized does not mean it is winning. Just because justice is quiet does not mean it is absent. And just because evil wrote itself a loophole does not mean heaven is impressed. That is the lesson with teeth. When wickedness thinks it covered every exit, truth comes through the pillar. You did not outsmart truth. You only made your downfall more specific. Tonight, the collective witnessed arrogance get its whole contract canceled. You watched a tyrant build a smug little fortress out of loopholes, clauses, conditions, and technicalities, fully convinced he had outsmarted consequence. Hiranyakashipu really strutted around like evil had found a legal team and a branding consultant. Meanwhile, Prahlad, the child in the middle of all that madness, stood there with more backbone than half the grown world put together, refusing to let terror educate his spirit. Then came the moment. The mockery hit the pillar. The pillar answered back, and Narasimha came through the seam like divine rage had finally grown tired of listening. That is what the collective just witnessed. Not random violence. Not holy mood swings. Threshold justice. You saw evil get corrected exactly where it thought it was safest. Not day, not night, not man, not beast. Not inside, not outside. Not earth, not sky. No weapon. No escape. No, but technically speech long enough to save him. Just claws, twilight, a threshold, and a divine reminder that truth does not care how clever your loopholes sound when your soul is rotten. And that child, Prahlada, standing in the middle of it all, reminded the collective of something even sharper. Devotion is not weakness. It is what stays standing when fear has turned the whole house demonic. That is what you witnessed. A tyrant with paperwork, a child with truth, and a God who came through the wall because arrogance had gotten too comfortable. Here's the plain truth with its teeth still in. A lot of wicked people are not actually powerful. They are just well arranged around other people's fear. They build systems, rules, threats, optics, titles, and carefully staged intimidation, then mistake that whole haunted puppet show for invincibility. Narasimha's scroll says otherwise. If your power depends on terror, it is already decaying. It just has good posture. And if you are on the side of truth, hear this clearly. Just because justice is quiet does not mean it is asleep. Just because protection is hidden does not mean it is absent. Just because the pillar is still does not mean it is empty. Some of you keep staring at evil asking, how is it still standing? Because arrogance always gets a season. That is how exposure ripens. Evil likes to overdecorate before it collapses. It loves a speech. It loves a plan. It loves a loophole. It loves acting like God is going to be confused by formatting. Narasimha is the answer to all that nonsense. The deeper law the collective is learning tonight is this. Truth is not trapped by the categories corruption created. That is massive, because tyrants always think in boxes. They weaponize titles, laws, roles, appearances, timing, fear, and the limits of what others expect. They think if they can control the stage, they can control the outcome. But the sacred is older than the stage. Narasimha teaches that divine correction often comes from the in-between place, the threshold, the twilight, the seam, the crack in certainty, the pillar people mocked because it looked ordinary. That means the collective must stop assuming that only what is visible is active. The unseen is not inactive. The quiet is not powerless. The hidden is not helpless. And Prahlada adds the second half of the law. What remains loyal to truth under pressure becomes impossible for evil to fully digest. That is cosmic knowledge. A clean soul in a corrupt house is dangerous. A devoted heart in a violent age is dangerous. A childlike faith with backbone is dangerous. Not because it screams, because it does not bow.
Universal currency receipt, architect musician 3611027, the graceful whisperer, Devalan seal.
Step into your new, stronger frequency of love and light, like your soul finally remembered. It is not here to babysit chaos. Love in the heart, light in the mind, and absolutely no spiritual coupon codes for foolishness. Let your love be real, not gullible. Let your light be bright, not busy trying to prove itself to every dusty shadow with a loud opinion. You do not have to wrestle nonsense to be powerful. Sometimes the holiest move is glowing so hard confusion has to leave the room and regroup. Today, I rise cleaner in spirit, stronger in truth, softer in heart, and brighter in frequency. I do not chase darkness to convince myself I shine. I simply shine and let darkness realize it overestimated itself. My frequency is love. My mind is light. My spirit is too anointed for low-budget chaos.
To our beautiful collective, from our day ones to every new soul joining this journey, we love and appreciate you deeply. You've turned this space into so much more than a community. You've made it a family. Thank you, truly. Your presence, your energy, and even the smallest acts of kindness have the power to shift the compass for many in ways unseen but deeply felt. Here's to each of you, all new and the many more to come. We're just getting started, and we're so grateful you're here with us. With love and infinite appreciation from the collective of Shaman Ahll.
Legacy is not only what power conquered. It is what innocence survived without becoming cruel. єнαဋħαη teaches that true legacy is not built by intimidation, fear, or the loud theater of control. Those things always rot. Real legacy is what remains when tyranny is broken and the soul still remembers how to be clean. It is the courage that stayed loyal under pressure. It is the child heart that did not let violence rewrite its devotion. It is the sacred protection that arrived not to flatter evil, but to make sure goodness was not left alone forever. And deep compassion in this scroll is not fragile softness. It is holy ferocity in service of love. It is the kind of mercy that does not ask innocence to keep negotiating with abuse. It is the kind of protection that says, no more. This ends here. That is compassion with claws, not cruel, not petty, not hateful, just unwilling to let darkness keep eating the room while everyone calls patience a virtue. So let the collective remember, may your legacy be more than survival. May it be the truth that stayed standing when fear wanted worship. May it be the tenderness that did not harden into bitterness. May it be the courage that protected the innocent without becoming the monster. May it be the kind of presence that tells the wounded you were never forgotten. Justice was moving even when the pillar looked still. Because the deepest inheritance is not revenge. It is protection without corruption. It is strength without cruelty. It is devotion that outlives terror and still knows how to love. Legacy is what remains faithful after fear has finished performing. Deep compassion is mercy strong enough to stop the monster without becoming one. May what we pass forward be safer, truer, and more fiercely loving, because we were here.
Until next time, your Sea Star Kiracy, channeled by 3611027, the beautiful whisperer. Our Sea Star Devalan seal. Apply the news you can use.